nothing more than feelings, trying to forget my
I had a whole list of
feelings of love.
things to talk about today until I ran across an article in the UK, actually. I found it on a link to it from
Rolling down on my
the Worldwide Hippies. UK newspaper, The Independent, had a tribute to Andy Williams. Andy Williams, Moon River. Love story. These days, people know me as a headbanger. I like to crank up the tunes. But before I started listening to that stuff, I was a big fan of smooth jazz and beautiful music, and Andy Williams was right up there on the top. Headbanging music was like, therapy, and it took me through a bad time, but Moon River and all those old songs, they take me somewhere else. You see, it's kind of personal with me because Moon River takes me back to when life was innocent? I don't know. Back to a time when I was a kid, and I'd follow along the hills behind my dad to the Kilocycle kitchen. You know what that was? That was a transmitter. The building that housed the transmitter for KTRE radio that played all that beautiful music. Music beyond the stars. Yeah. Pretty stuff, Raindrops keep falling on my head. Follow Dad around. We'd go up to the studio and Hampton Eggs every weekday morning. Hampton Keithley. Them big ass, turntables and all that pretty music, and Hampton Keithley talking to the folks in Lufkin. And then we'd, Dad'd go to work out the transmitter. He had to work out the transmitter every night. And we'd go in the door there, and there was a big old RCA AM transmitter and a big old Raytheon, twice as big as the RCA. The Raytheon was the backup transmitter. The RCA is the one they used all the time. You could look through the little glass window in the front of the transmitter, and there was these big tubes of 303s, and they glowed, and you could hear the music playing through those tubes. And man, I have one of those tubes hanging up in the house with my daddy tribute, which I'll have to share with you sometime. Andy Williams. It was a time that folks like me who know what the hell is going on, what's been going on for decades, nearly a century. We know the backstory. Like I wrote in my blog a minute ago, there's a backstory that wasn't nearly as pretty as Moon River, and it wasn't a love story like Andy's famous song from the movie in 1970. But floating along the surface of that was a bunch of people like myself whose life wasn't really affected. We were the 47% back then, Always, that gap it's not something that came along lately. It's been there. And we're the people who didn't have a hell of a lot of money. My dad didn't make shit working for the radio station. And he didn't get any raises for like a decade. But he loved it. And I'll never forget it. And he was my Huckleberry friend. So when I heard that Andy Williams died, there's a funny story about that. Andy Williams had has a theater whichever. In Branson, I never wanted to go to Branson to hit hee-haw stuff. Always wanted to hear Andy Williams, but I did go to Branson once. Yeah, I did. Big truck. Went to Branson to pick up a load of charcoal from a charcoal plant right down in the middle of Branson. Winding ass little roads down there. And I got my load and I headed out. This is, what do you call this? Shepherd of the Hills or something like that. Main drag. Narrow. 2-lane. It goes up and it turns. Turns going up. And I was in that old piece of shit truck. That old blue bomb that they put me in, and shit, man, it didn't want to climb hills, and I had a load, and it was a narrow road, and the road was full of people, and I couldn't get out there to make that turn up there. And you know what happened? Oh shit! The back wheel of my trailer slid off the side of the road. They had this big fucking ditch beside that road, and I got too close to it, and my trailer goes up in the air, and I said, "Oh shit!" And I'm blocking the main road that goes down in front of Andy Williams Theater. Yeah, my truck is sitting there in the way. Nobody can go to the theaters. And call a wrecker. Walk up the hill and call a wrecker. They send this guy out here with a little old pickup truck wrecker. I'm saying, well, shit. You ain't gonna be able to pull that truck with that. That truck weighs 80,000 pounds. So he got this brilliant idea. He did. He said, you know, the road, it went up and it turned. And then it was a bluff over the other side, and there was a road went down through there. He said, "Here's what I'll do. I'll go over there, below the hill with the cable. The wrecker will back up against that bank, and we'll hook it to the truck, and we'll pull the truck out of the hole that way. The winch ought to pull it. The winch is supposed to pull it." So I said, "All right, we'll try that." So he drug his cable over there, and he crawled under the front of my truck and hooked it on. And he started cranking, and I didn't look under there to see where he'd hooked that damn cable. And I should have. Because that cable's pulling, and I'm in the truck going, and he's moving. All of a sudden, something goes, BAM! And I go, what the hell was that? Got out, you know what that stupid shit had done? He had hooked that cable. He'd hooked that cable onto my, like down on my wheel, on the suspension. And instead of pulling the truck out, he yanked the entire front suspension of that truck forward about 6 inches. In other words, he broke my truck. Shit. Well, that didn't work. And now I'm stuck. And it's like I've been sitting there for a couple of hours. And you can see the traffic. Down at Shepherd of the Hills. I think the name of the thing, Shepherd of the Hills. Way off down there, and there's a couple of limos in there. Somebody said there was Andy Williams in one of those cars. But I can guarantee you nobody was going to his theater because I had it blocked. So I walk up the hill, you know, it's getting late now, and I'm tired, and I'm standing up there trying to figure out what to do, and shit. This old cop, this kid come up there, he's, you know, a cop, he says, he looks at me and he says, "Sir, if you don't move your truck, we're going to have to move it for you. It's blocking the traffic." And the kid had been standing there watching what we were doing. And I looked at him sincerely and I said, you know what? If you can get that truck out of there, you can have it. Yeah, fuck that, man. So that record dude, he said, we got to get something else. Closest record, big enough to pull that truck, was in Branson, Missouri. Not Branson, Missouri. It was in Springfield. Springfield, Missouri. Way the hell up north. So call the shop back in Lufkin, and they said, well, get something and get it out of there. So they called the wrecker. I called the wrecker, headed down from Springfield. All right. So he's on his way, but we got to move this truck's, going on 3 or 4 hours. Goddamn traffic's backed up. People are so fucking mad at me. And I'm mad at that truck, and nobody's happy. So the record dude that tore the front end out of my truck, he went and got another wrecker, or called his other wrecker. And they tied them both together on the road. And then hooked a cable to the front of my truck. This time he put it in the right place. And I got in the truck, and the stupid truck had this shut off. But when the front of the truck was up high, it would shut the fucking motor off. Really, it was some kind of shut off, had something to do with the radiator or something, I don't remember. Don't know, I don't think I ever learned. But the damn thing would shut off if it was, pitched up like that. And the damn front was pitched up like that. I thought any minute that trailer was going to go right over in that ditch. It was terrible. So I got in the truck. I crawled up there in the truck. And this old truck had a starter button. You didn't start it with the key. The key done wore out. So I had one hand on the key, foot on the clutch, thumb on the button. They get in there and they go to whoa with their trucks, and I'd get in my truck and crank it, and it'd die, and I'd hit the thumb, crank it again, and we got that damn thing out of the ditch and up the hill and pulled it into a parking lot. And everybody in Branson was happy. But me, because now my truck is broke. Shit. I hit the notebook again. Sorry about that. So, what I did was, when they got there with that other wrecker, we still had to have that wrecker, out of Springfield. That was a big fucking wrecker. It was huge. You could move the moon with that thing. And he backed up to that and hooked up to it and took off with it like it was a pickup truck. And he took me across town to a hotel and the bus barn. There wasn't no shop there for trucks, but the bus barn was there where they worked on all those Star buses. And I got a glimpse of Mickey Gilly, whose bus was in the shop when I got there. And the story didn't end there. This is kind of fun. Yeah, we pull that truck up, and we drop the trailer, and then pull the truck up to the door. The shop's already closed. We pull the truck up to the door of the shop, and we're gonna leave it there. They're gonna fix it this morning. Next morning, so walk over to the hotel next door, one of them big fancy hotels, the kind of place that Oak Ridge did not want to pay for. Whatever, So I walked over there and I got a room, billed it to the company, went back to my room, turned on the TV set, and guess what? There ain't no picture. The cable don't work. Now, get the thing in. Now what the fuck? Phone rings. It's front desk. The guy says, hey, are you the guy that has that truck trailer over there next door? And I said, yeah. He said, you know what? You're blocking our satellite dish. No shit. yeah, it's true. I would have walked over there, and the truck was sitting, up here, and the satellite dish was down the hill here, and the route to the satellite dish was right through my truck, my trailer. So the hotel didn't have TV anymore, which is neat. So I called that record dude back, and I said, "Man, we gotta move this trailer." And he said, "Well, I don't know how we're gonna do it, because it's heavy." So he backs up. He comes up there with his record, and he backs up, to the back of that trailer, and he hooks on a cable to the fifth wheel. And as he pulls on that cable, the front of his truck goes up until we had like this little balance. The front of his truck and the landing gear of that trailer were just kind of balanced. The front of his front wheels was off the ground about like that. It was. He put that thing in gear. I mean, there was no turning it, but he could pull it forward. He pulled it forward out in front of that damn satellite dish. And I went back to my room, and they fixed my truck the next day, and I got my trailer and went on to Springfield. That was a bitch going up through those mountains. So, I almost got to see Andy Williams. I did see a little bit of Branson. I wasn't real impressed. But, when I heard that Andy Williams had passed on, it took me back a little bit. My dad, he rode with me once or a few times in that big old blue truck, and he'd sit up in the seat, and I'd play those tunes. He didn't like them. He wanted me to play, that old Grand Ole Opry stuff. I bought a tape just for him. It was a Patsy Cline. We could listen to Patsy Cline. He'd sit up there in that seat, and I said, he'd be sleepy. I said, "Dad, you need to get in that sleeper." "No, I want to see." So wound up, in that tiny little sleeper. He'd sleep one way and I sleep the other. Our feet, be sticking each other in the nose. And he loved every minute of it. And one time we pulled up to the yard, and door opened, and all of a sudden he disappeared. Son of a bitch, he fell out of that truck. If he hadn't hit that fence, he'd have busted his ass wide open. I got an email. Shit. And then, 98, he's gone, my Huckleberry Friend. And the song Moon River talks about a Huckleberry Friend. And now Andy's gone too. His Kilocycle's Kitchen's long gone. KTRE, it's all gone. And that world is gone. That sucks, man. I tell you, it's a place that I wish I could go back to just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip back there for a little while. And I said on my blog, I'll say this, we want there to be a heaven. We want there to be, the rock and roll heaven, or some kind of heaven. We want to think that, when we die, we don't, but I think we do. It's over. But there is heaven, and the heaven is somewhere down here, and it's a place not a lot of people go. Sometimes for some people it's tiny. It's a little bitty place, but it's a place, you don't need pain pills, you don't need weed, you don't need gin, you don't need Slipknot. What you need is a little bit of maybe Andy Williams, a little bit of Moon River, a little bit of melancholy, a little bit of time to look down in there and figure out, I'm a human being. I say that a lot, don't I? We're human beings. We're important. And there is such a thing as peace. And you can find it, man. Sometimes it's hard to find. But I think I'll slip off there for a little while. Because, Andy Williams is gone, and Old Blue Eyes is gone, and all those old days are gone. But they're not gone completely, and they won't be there. They won't be gone completely until I'm gone, because they live in my heaven. You know what I mean?
There's such
So I'm gonna go there. If you got heaven, you know,
to
take a little trip down there and let's do some moonlit.
We're after
Let's take a ride down the river.
that same rainbow's end, waiting round the bend, my huckleberry friend, Moon River.